Welcome. Have a seat. Make yourself a cup of tea. We're all friends here. Welcome to Book Review, the show where we talk about books. Today, we're going to be discussing 5 books that I've read recently. I'll discuss what they're about, what my thoughts were, and maybe even rate them. First book, The Physics of Superheroes by James Kakalios. This book basically talks about different scientific ideas and principles using examples pulled from classic comic stories and characters. Despite what the title kind of implies, you don't really need that much of a firm foundation of comic books or even physics really to understand the book. The author goes through a lot of the different concepts in ways that are kind of easier to understand. The author makes sure to give context and explanations behind the different superhero characters and scenarios that he uses for his examples. That being said, one thing that I noticed about this book is that I was able to understand it a bit more easily because I have a couple years of physics classes under my figurative physics belt. So that helped me to understand the stuff that he was talking about a little bit more. But I feel like if you don't have a super solid foundation in physics, you can still understand the chapters, but it's going to be a little bit harder for you to fully grasp the concept. So you can still get it, but not to maybe the level that you'd want to understand it or need to understand it if you're an actual prospective scientist. Other than that though, he draws upon a lot of easily recognizable characters and brings up some pretty famous comic storylines. I kind of wish that I had read this book before I took my intro physics classes, because the illustrations that he gives in this book are actually pretty helpful for describing more of the basic concepts. Once it gets to the higher level thinking, everything gets a bit weird. But other than that, this book was pretty great. Would recommend. Unless you hate STEM with a burning, fiery passion. Check out the book. Next book! Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda. Or as the movie people like to call it, Love, Simon. Which is honestly a lot easier to say, so I get why they changed the title for the movie. This book pretty much plays out like any teen drama. You have the love triangles, you have the backstabbing, you have the betrayals. It's all there. It's high school. What do you expect? Other than that though, it was a pretty good read. I thought it was interesting how the author interspersed the regular Simon mental narrative with the emails between Simon and Blue, just because I kind of enjoy it when you get that sort of different take on how the story is playing out. So you get to see through their interactions how those interactions sort of are influenced by and shape the storyline. So that's always fun. Like many stories, the problems of this novel could easily be solved with some communication and trust between people. But without that, there'd be no storyline, so what can you do? All in all, it ends up being a really heartwarming and inspirational book. The movie was good too. I cried at the end. I cry a lot. Book 3! Our third book is Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. Or as I like to call it, Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World Full of People Who Won't Shut Their Faces. I thought this was a pretty interesting read because I'm not really big into psychology books or self-help books, I guess you'd call them. But I actually enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would. Basically, the author, Susan Cain, goes over a variety of topics, including extroversion and introversion, and what those terms mean, and how they differ, and the social and cultural effects that one's introversion or lack thereof can cause. So she pulls on a bunch of different personal anecdotes and interviews she's conducted and research journals that she's read to talk about the cause of introversion and how to deal with it, and how people with introverted qualities can contribute to society in spite of the restrictions that might be imposed by those qualities. And despite the title, the book isn't really like aimed just towards introverts or painting the picture that extroverts are the enemy and introverts are somehow superior to them. That's not really what she's going for. It's more that because of cultural shifts and different ideals that have been evolving over time, the value of introversion has sort of diminished along with it. Does that make sense? So even if you see yourself as an extrovert or you see yourself as an introvert, I think no matter what, you'd be able to learn something from this book. I feel like this would be on my list of books that everyone should read at least once in their life, like To Kill a Mockingbird or Goodnight Moon. Anyway, I found this book really eye-opening and motivational because I'm introverted as all get out. So there are a lot of things in the book that I could relate to personally and a lot of lessons that I took away that I think are gonna be beneficial later on in life. Book number 4, Crazy Rich Asians. This book actually came out a while ago. I thought it came out more recently since the movie just came out, but I guess some movies get developed faster than others. Anyway, Kevin Kwan plays upon the traditional template of two lovers whose relationship is threatened by one lover's parents disapproving of the lover's lover. I'm gonna edit this out. In the novel, you have Rachel Chu, who is Chinese American, and you have Nick Young, who is British. He has a British accent. Anyway, they're in love, so Nick takes Rachel to Singapore to meet his parents, and then she finds out that they're crazy rich, and a bunch of wacky hijinks ensues after that. You know, the usual stuff. One thing about this book that the movie adaptation kind of downplays is there are a lot of characters. Like, a lot. There's even like a whole family tree in the beginning of the book where it's like all 5,000 relatives and how they're related. And I can't read family trees, so I just kind of like flipped back and forth between the story and the family tree and nothing was happening. But yeah, once I started getting through the novel, I kind of turned on my Game of Thrones character's brain and started like sorting out all the characters and what their characterizations were, personalities, all that fun stuff. I still got characters mixed up every now and then because I can't remember things. But it was all good, it was fine. So because you have to deal with a bunch of different characters and a bunch of like interweaving storylines, the story gets like a little bit sluggish at times. And there were some chapters where I didn't remember the characters, I didn't really care about them, I just wanted to figure out what happened next. For the most part, it was a really intriguing storyline, and there were characters that were really memorable, and overall I just really enjoyed it. The movie was good too, but we'll talk about that later. One thing that I thought was really interesting though was the difference between the film adaptation ending and the ending of the original novel. The original novel, if you haven't read it yet, first read it. It ends on a much more depressing note than the movie. I think the movie just wanted to give it the happy Hollywood ending. But the book is a lot more realistic and kind of unresolved in regards to the ending. But if you read it, you'll find out. Read it, it's good. This book gets an Alamak out of 10. I'm not even pronouncing that right, am I? Last book! Our last book is kind of a weird entry. This one is Performance Success by Don Green. Performance Success is interesting in the sense that it's kind of like a guidebook. The book was written as a way for performers to prepare for a big audition or a big event or anything that had been causing them anxiety or difficulties with the preparation. In the book, he goes over what are called the 7 essential skills for optimal performance and different exercises and examples on how to best apply those skills and continue to practice applying them to performances and rehearsals. One fun thing about this book is that it's really interactive. There's a artist performance survey that you take at the beginning to assess strengths and weaknesses, and based on that, there are different recommendations on what you can do to either improve areas that you're lacking in or to maintain your level of skill with whatever your strengths are. So I took the artist performance survey and I ended up getting really low scores in pretty much everything, which I kind of expected because performances really stress me out. But there are a few cool techniques that he talks about in this to help with rehearsals and even during performances, and things to think about that I wouldn't really have considered had he not brought them up. Part of the interaction of the book comes with different exercises and activities that I guess are supposed to help you as you prepare for whatever big event it is that you're worried about. A lot of the times throughout the book, you're supposed to record a piece from your repertoire and perform it and maybe write a little bit about some aspect of it. I guess that's supposed to help you reflect on what you did well or what you did not so well and how you can improve for next time. I ended up not doing that because one, I don't really have any pieces in my repertoire right now, and two, part of it also required having someone else listen to your recordings, and I didn't really want to have anyone do that. But I still found it really fascinating. The final chapter where he's trying to get you all hyped and comfortable to perform or whatever, I was getting excited just reading it. The way he motivates you to do your best and to remember everything, even though I didn't have anything that I was preparing for, I still felt that energy that he was giving off. One thing that I really would have liked out of this book, though, would be a few more exercises to practice the skills that he talks about, because he would give maybe one or two things that you could do to practice for each skill, but I feel like I'd have a better handle on the skills that he was talking about if I had other ways to practice them or other things that I could do to help me focus on whatever aspect of performing that he's talking about. Like I said, I'm no good at performing, so I need all the help I can get. Okay, that'll be it for this video. There are a few books that I have in the queue that I'm hoping to read within the next few months or so. But until then, I hope you enjoyed this. I'll leave links in the description for the books I talked about. And if you have any book recommendations, I'm always looking for new books to read, so bring them on! I think that'll be it for this video then. Goodbye.